Let me show you how to roll a blunt. Break it down, right? Split it with your fingernails. Don't use a knife, don't use a razor blade. Split it with your fingernails. You break it down with your fingers. You gotta keep it all natural, right? Once you get it all broke down like that there, right? Get it all in there, right? Use your fingers like this and you got to roll it. You can't just fold it. That's why they got sloppy blunts. You got to roll it like you roll a little joint, you know? Put your finger up like that, close it off at the points. We got us a blunt. It's there. All you got to do now is lick it. Now this is the important part. You don't want to drown it. You just want to lick it. Look. Here. When I close this, it's going to be a blunt. Check it. Bust it. We got us a fat-ass blunt right here. It's all good. How you like that? I just taught y'all how to roll the blunt. Now y'all take it to the next nigga and teach him how to roll one. If I see y'all smoking that white shit, I'm gonna be hot. Smoke brown, black for black.
One year after its ban, Anslinger's law runs into a powerful critic. It was none other than the mayor of America's biggest metropolitan city, Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia of New York. LaGuardia commissions a group of medical professionals from the New York Academy of Medicine to study his city's marijuana problem. This blue ribbon panel visits schoolyards, interviews principals, even tests the effects of the drug on adults. After 4 years of study, the following conclusions are drawn. Smoking marijuana does not lead to addiction. Marijuana smoking is not widespread among school children. Marijuana is not a determining factor in major crimes. Publicity concerning the catastrophic effects of marijuana use in New York City is unfounded. Ironically, LaGuardia obtained the pot used in his study from Anslinger.
And then when the LaGuardia report came out, Anslinger felt betrayed. That was the end of his scientific research on marijuana as far as he was concerned.
No matter what the scientific basis for LaGuardia's study, he is pressured to toe the party line. In the Big Apple, marijuana will remain an illegal drug. Through World War II, marijuana arrests drop. But ever wise to the power of the press, Anslinger begins targeting celebrities and musicians to grab headlines. He arrests jazz drummer Gene Krupa for possessing marijuana, who spends 87 days in jail. Actor Robert Mitchum is busted, and his career is almost shattered after he's arrested at a pot party. But there will be new drugs to combat. One other, legal for the time being, is making history on the battlefields of World War II. Of all the new technologies Germany uses in the Second World War, one touches the common soldier and the Führer alike. It is the synthetic chemical amphetamine, more commonly known as speed. The Blitzkrieg could just as easily have been called Speedkrieg.
Everybody was amazed how fast the German panzer troops rushed across Europe westward towards the lowlands. Couldn't believe they could just keep going night and day and so forth. And it was later learned that they were dispensing large amounts of amphetamines to these troops.
Hitler is injected as many as 5 times a day with methamphetamine, a supercharged amphetamine. Scholars claim Hitler's mad rants and blunders were the result of his addiction to the drug. It is also used in the Japanese war effort, given to the Imperial ground forces and kamikaze pilots. The drug of the Axis war machine is a stimulant. It affects the sympathetic nervous system to increase alertness and decrease fatigue. Amphetamines stimulate the adrenal gland to increase spontaneity, initiative, confidence, and a sense of well-being. Amphetamines are commonly associated with appetite suppression, but the drug was first introduced as a lung decongestant, the Benzedrine inhaler, nicknamed Benny in Germany in 1932.
It would clear up your sinuses and do a lot of other things. It wasn't long before people discovered that if you break the inhaler and take the cotton swab, the little cotton swab which holds all of the amphetamine, Some people just swallowed it whole, other people dissolved it in coffee or what have you.
Well, I was just wondering about those bennies and things we've been fooling around with.
A benny? A benny? You mean a benzodrine tablet?
This method of ingestion is commonly called poppin' bennies. At the time, no one knew how highly addictive and powerful a stimulant amphetamines were.
It was quite euphorogenic. It gave people a sense of confidence. Life seemed brighter. You didn't have to sleep as much. You could overcome fatigue. It made doing boring things more interesting. And, of course, weight loss.
1946, amphetamines find their way into post-war society. In Japan, the market is flooded with vast amounts of the drug. In America, housewives take speed to feel better. Amphetamines are to the 50s what opiates were in the past. Truck drivers take them to stay up for days, like dock workers who once used cocaine to work through the night, and artists and writers who used laudanum a century ago now pop bennies for kicks and inspiration. Like author Jack Kerouac, while popping benzodrine, he writes On the Road in 20 Days in 1955.
Meth's the all-American drug. Meth was invented for Americans. It really embodies all of the values that we hold dear. Industriousness, hard work, basically enthusiasm for accomplishing tasks. It was the most widely prescribed drug in America's history.
The appeal of amphetamines cuts across all walks of life. One of the most famous users is the newly drafted Elvis Aaron Presley. In October 1958, Presley begins a tour of duty in West Germany. As an Army GI, a sergeant introduces him to speed. From this point on, the king of rock and roll is hooked for the rest of his life.
Drugs must be prescribed by a doctor and prepared by a licensed pharmacist.
And physicians were the real pushers of this drug. You're a little depressed? Here, let me prescribe some form of amphetamine. You want to lose weight? Here, let me prescribe some amphetamine. You say you don't have enough energy? I mean, the reasons were legion. In 1946, a physician by the name of W.R. Bett published a paper in which he claimed there were 39 medical reasons for prescribing amphetamines. And they were everything from hiccups to schizophrenia.
By the 1960s, amphetamine use was a hidden epidemic. On the other hand, marijuana, once kept behind closed doors, is openly used. Unlike methamphetamine, a legal drug, marijuana has been outlawed by the Marijuana Stamp Act of 1937. Users face fines and jail sentences under federal law. But it is the latest drug fad, the favorite of baby boomers, despite these potentially harsh penalties.
Marijuana is kind of a hybrid. It has some features that are like LSD. It also doesn't produce physical dependence, and it doesn't produce overdose deaths. And the fact that it doesn't do those two things makes it seem like it's not, quote, an addictive drug. It has an appeal to people who are smart and who are interested in going beyond the conventional boundaries of their behavior.
33 years after the Marijuana Tax Act, its constitutionality was questioned in the Supreme Court. The man who led the charge to change the law was the man who told a generation to tune in, turn on, and drop out. Timothy Leary.
Timothy Leary, the LSD guru, argued that in order to get the license, one had to break the law. In other words, one had to have the marijuana before you got the license, and therefore you were already in violation of the law, and therefore getting the license was simply self-incrimination. The Supreme Court agreed with him and overturned the law.
In the slam of a gavel, the federal law that banned marijuana vanished. Until 1914, most people believed the Constitution upheld one's right to ingest any substance one wanted. Besides, a drug that made you feel better was perceived as good. But by 1970, recreational drug use was perceived as bad, and Congress didn't consider the right to use drugs a right protected by the Constitution, and banned marijuana in the Controlled Substance Act of 1970.